Yo, indie games are killing it right now. I mean, these indie game developers are treating these AAA titles like Ted Bundy victims. Let's take Fall Guys for example. In the first month of Fall Guys, they earned $185 million. That means Fall Guys earned more than Last of Us in its first month. But I mean, the game was also leaked, so like that may get people excited about the game. Call of Duty is worth $9.7 billion, and Fortnite is worth $5.8 billion. And just put in perspective that Call of Duty has been around for 18 years, and Fortnite has been around for only 5 years, and it's catching up to Call of Duty. And yes, Fortnite is an indie game. When the game first launched, there were 700 employees running it. But nowadays it's probably more, but it was an indie game. Okay. But I hear the other argument that even though something makes a lot of money, that doesn't mean that it's good. I mean, Black Widow is a perfect example of that, because my lord, that movie was a whole lot of mid. For those who don't know what an indie game is, for starters, you're an idiot, an absolute dumbass. I'm just messing with you. I didn't know what indie games were for a hot minute as well. So the word indie is short for independent, so it means that they are independent game developers, meaning that these developers don't work under a big major company like Microsoft or Activision. They work amongst themselves for their own company. I mean, let's take Minecraft for example. Minecraft was developed by a nice big Swedish man that went by Notch, meaning that the game was an indie game at one point. But eventually Microsoft was like, damn, I like this game, I'ma buy it. And the greatest magic of all that these game developers do is that they put passion into it. Yes, you heard me right. Passion. You hear that? Passion. Passionate from miles away. I mean, there's games that are made with super low budgets and such a high possibility of failing, but they just tell themselves, nah, we making this game. We making out the hood with this one. I mean, these indie games have such basic foundations that are put into them, but yet these indie game developers put so much effort into them. And I can't help but admire these people's work ethic in making these games. And it's even more amazing when it's one person that develops an entire game. But we've seen this done time and time again. Minecraft, Stardew Valley, Papers, Please, Five Nights at Freddy's. And hearing that only one person developed the entire game makes it all more impressive. I mean, I edit videos and I would say that it probably takes me about 12 hours all in total at most. And these guys are taking days, maybe sometimes years to develop these games. These guys single-handedly prove that if you're passionate and determined enough to put your time and effort into something that you truly care about, anything is possible. There is this one game that I do briefly want to highlight, and the game is called Bright Memory. Now this game looks amazing. I mean, it looks AAA, doesn't it? Now I want you to take a crack at how many people you think took to develop this game. It took one person. One person made this entire game. The game was developed by a guy named Zhang. Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, the narrative for this game is kind of weird. There's a lot going on in it. The story is also extremely short. It's like less than an hour long. But the gameplay and the visuals are amazing. The gameplay combines close range combat and shooting extremely well. And I can't help but admire that this was done by one singular determined man. You can call me a meat writer. I am impressed. I have talked about a lot of good indie games so far, but just like everything else in the world, there is of course the bad along with the good. You remember the era of Flash games? There was quite a few good Flash games, but there is a lot of really horrendous Flash games. And let's take Roblox as another example, because technically their games are independent. They're just using Roblox as a platform to develop their games. Roblox developers, there are a lot that have made phenomenal Roblox games, but there are also a lot that have made pretty mediocre Roblox games. Roblox is a website that is catered towards a younger demographic, but I will say that I do have to give credit where it is due. Some of these games are extremely good, and the fact that these are most likely children with free time, it is really cool to see that they decide to use their free time to try to maybe get into game development. But I guess that's what indie game development is all about. You don't go into indie games expecting a AAA title. These aren't high budget games with a large development team around the world. These are small groups of individuals making these type of games. These are individuals with low budgets and small development teams. Because the problem with a company making a high budget game for not a large audience, it creates fear that there won't be enough revenue to make up for how much money they put into the game. But for indie games, that fear is practically gone. There's not much money going into making these amazing indie games, so there's not much money that you're going to lose. And that's why I brought the comparison of Last of Us 2 and Fall Guys. Companies take notice that these indie games are able to profit more than these big AAA games. But they do have high determination for something that they truly do care about. Not all indie games are made for the masses, but sometimes they're made for niche audiences and small communities, but even then, outsiders looking in could find their way into this new subgenre or community that they've never heard of. Video games as a whole bring people together, and indie games are powerful at that. Because it's not companies making these games, it's people making these games. Indie games are amazing, and some indie games that you play is just experiences that you cannot forget about. And if you don't play indie games, you truly are missing out. Because I am confident in saying that there are indie games about anything and everything. And I mean anything. If you're interested in furry, if that's the way that you drift, you can go ahead and do that. Maybe you have some fantasies that